Good afternoon and welcome to the IHI Call Days, calls 4 and 5. My name is Sergio and I will be moderating today's refresher on call 4, topic 2, patient-centric blood sample collection to enable decentralized clinical trials and improve access to healthcare. Before we start, I would like to say an important disclaimer. There we go. The call topics are still under consultation with the state's representative group and the Science and Innovation Panel. Therefore, all information regarding future IHI call topics is indicative and subject to change until call launch. You will find the final authorized version of the topic text on the Funding and Tenders portal. The call topic, if you have questions, you can use the chat box on the right corner of your screen at any time, and we will answer them at the end of this presentation. Today, we have John Clifford with us, and he will actually introduce the call topic. So without further ado, John, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sergio. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Clifford. So in today's webinar, we will start with a few words on the IHI program. Then we will hear from the topic writer who will present the topic itself. It is important to remember that call 4 is a two-stage call, and the pre-identified industry consortium has prepared the topic text. Then we will briefly cover the proposal submission and evaluation process, as well as give some tips to interested applicants. It's important to point out that this webinar will not cover the rules and procedures. A webinar on rules and procedures took place yesterday, and a recording will be available on the IHI website shortly. Okay, so the Innovative Health Initiative is a partnership in health in the European Union between, on the one hand, the European Commission, and on the other hand, the healthcare industry, which is represented by a series of trade associations. So we have COSIR representing the field of medical imaging, radiotherapy, and so on. We have FPA, including Vaccines Europe, representing the pharmaceutical and vaccines industries. We have Europa Bio, representing the biotechnology industry, and MedTech Europe, representing the medical technology industry. So the general objectives of IHI are to turn health research and innovation into real benefits for patients and society, to deliver effective health innovations that cover the entire spectrum of care, and to make Europe's health industries globally competitive. So IHI's Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, or SRIA for short, as we call it, details the areas that IHI should work on and helps guide IHI's decision-making on which ideas should be turned into call topics. So the focus of the SRIA is on cross-sectorial approaches to facilitate the creation of new products and services in healthcare. The goal of the SRIA is to lay the foundations for the development of safer and more effective healthcare solutions. So it's important to point out that the research supported by the IHI program remains at the pre-competitive level, as there is an expectation for industry partners to work together on a common goal. So before going on to present the topic itself, as I mentioned earlier, this is a two-stage call. So how does a two-stage call work at IHI? So the call topic has been defined by what we refer to as the pre-identified industry consortium. In this consortium, the industry partners have aligned around a shared challenge for industry and agreed to work together and also to commit resources. This pre-identified industry consortium then looks at ideas coming from the public sector and prepares the topic text. Once the topic text is approved by the IHI Governing Board, the topic is then launched as a call for proposals. During the call for proposals, the industry consortium steps aside and we open the call to applicants applying for the public funding only, who form their own consortia. These applicants are typically academics, hospitals, regulators, patients, organizations, SMEs, and so on. These applicants will prepare what we refer to as the short proposals at stage 1. All the submitted short proposals undergo a competitive evaluation by an independent panel of experts, and at the end, only the top-ranked proposal will go forward to stage 2. In stage 2, the consortium with the top-ranked proposal at stage 1 will merge with the original industry consortium and prepare the topic text. This larger consortium will work together to prepare the full proposal, which will itself be evaluated at stage 2. If successful in the second evaluation, the consortium will move on to the granting phase, where the grant agreement and consortium agreements are prepared, followed by the start of the project itself. So on that note, I will give the floor to the topic writer, Tony, who will present the topic in detail. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, John. Can you go to the first slide? Great. Thanks, John. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me here. This is a refresher of the presentation we had in January, and I believe it's more relevant than ever. I've been very fortunate to work with a great industry consortium. Very much look forward to working with you as well. Just a quick reminder, all questions that are not answered today should go to IHI directly, not to me or the industry consortium colleagues. Next slide, please. So this is a challenge that is very much well known to everyone. Blood diagnostics are everywhere. They remain burdensome. And here are just a few bullet points to summarize the experience. We have been using blood diagnostics and blood samples for informing patient care for a very long time. We're ordering blood draws almost as a reflex as clinicians and drug developers. However, we're still using a technique that was introduced in the 1940s, which is venipuncture. It can be painful and requires burden of travel to a healthcare provider or healthcare clinic, and specifically the high burden on vulnerable populations, especially in pediatrics and elderly, could lead to increased exposure, as we've seen during the recent pandemic, and even to anemia in oncology. An important point is that blood collection right now, the procedures are very inflexible and it cannot allow for ongoing high frequency monitoring. So we need to have a patient-centric as opposed to the clinic-centric blood sampling approach. And we need to figure out how to implement and how to create acceptance. Next slide, please. So blood collection is ubiquitous, as you know. The solution needs to involve everyone, and it's really important to have a harmonized approach across all stakeholders in the EU. Note that we have a similar initiative that we're proposing in the United States, and we very much like to harmonize in between. We need a practical implementation path in Europe, something that can enable blood sampling for decentralized trials at home, and inclusion trials. We've included industry partners from different sectors in the pharma industry, med device manufacturers, and in vitro diagnostics companies to exchange knowledge and experience. We very much look forward to collaborating with clinical centers that are experienced in trials, including decentralized trials, academia, and subject matter experts. It is key to involve and engage patients and caregivers as well as healthcare professionals to make sure that this user experience gets incorporated into our framework. And of course, last but not least, to involve the regulators, the policymakers, payers, and HTA experts. Again, we want to develop a harmonized approach that is acceptable and accessible to all stakeholders in the healthcare systems, and to ensure the implementation across Europe. I believe the only way to get there is through a public-private partnership. Now, next slide, please. Scope of the topic. Thanks. So the 4 key elements are: 1, we need to demonstrate concordance. This kind of goes without saying. If microsampling or patient-centric sampling doesn't correlate with venipuncture samples, this is moot. The second, and likely the most difficult, is to validate the logistics of sample collection, including shipping, standardizing central lab analysis, and so forth. And then, third point, we need to educate and ensure patient acceptability and medical acceptability. And then fourth, and not least, is the regulatory acceptability in the EU and harmonizing this with other non-EU European countries and the US. Next slide. What do we expect for outcomes? We expect to enable innovations in healthcare delivery and research, including insights into the public acceptability for microsampling at home, to advance the transition from the hospital to the home. This seems to remain a durable change post-pandemic. measure the change in the care quality, integrate with the medical records, and utilize the higher frequency of the data that's enabled by patient-centric sampling, and then lay the groundwork to start measuring how doctors' practices and decisions change, as well as measure the improved patient outcomes. Next slide, please. This is taking a while for me. Okay, so expected impact. We want to improve patient experience and enable decentralized trials and care. What we've discussed before, we need to shift from large volume to small volume, from the clinic to the home, to get to a better experience for the patients and optimizing the patient care, improving decentralized clinical trials, and facilitate monitoring for prevention, treatment, and surveillance of disease. Next slide, please. This is probably the slide that you care most about. What do we expect and what are we hoping for from the applicant consortium? And here the focus is to integrate existing innovative technologies and establishing infrastructure. It's so important. I put it on the slide twice. You see here just down below in red. We're looking for help with grant administration, project management, including providing and maintaining the IT and data management infrastructure, help with the umbrella and master study, so including getting the regulatory approvals, development of patient-facing and participant-facing materials, recruitment of participants, and conducting this umbrella master study, including the collection of biological samples. Very importantly, we're looking for the applicant consortium to provide a microsampling technique, at least one device for the collection of capillary blood in the upper arm. As you'll see, the industry consortium provides a different device. To develop the logistical capability around implementing those new technologies in Europe, to engage and activate patients, caregivers, and clinicians, and last but not least, to interact with the regulatory authorities. Again, the focus is to take something that exists as a device, as opposed to developing a new device that doesn't exist yet. To take what exists, integrate into the infrastructure, and create a new framework for patient-centric blood sampling. Next slide, please. Now, the in-kind contributions and contributions of the industry consortium primarily focus around assets and expertise. So clinical trial and medical expertise, techniques, analytical techniques, sample analysis. We're providing one device for capillary sampling using a finger stick, a lancet, logistics, including the quality of samples, compliance of collection and data, guidance in the feedback collection, developing of the training materials, and finally, integration with the requirements and regulatory frameworks. Next slide, please. The indicative budget is about 8 million euros. As you see here, the maximum financial contribution from IHI is up to about 4.4 million euros. And finally, we have an in-kind financial contribution from industry partners of about 3.5 million euros and in-kind contribution of the IHI joint undertaking partners of 300,000. Next slide, please. So the indicative duration is 42 months. As I mentioned here on the slide, it's indicative only at stage 2, as you've seen presented by John. The consortium selected at stage 1 and the predefined industry consortium and contributing partners may agree jointly of a different duration when we submit the full proposal. Next slide. So thank you for your attention. And actually, John, if you wouldn't mind going to this next slide, it's a summary slide as we're waiting for Q&A. So there is, I'm not seeing that here. Can you move to the next slide?
Tony, sorry, I'm just going to run over some slides on the proposal submission and evaluation. Now,
Okay.
before you go to questions, I know you have a summary slide at the end. We can put
Okay,
that
so
up at
I'll
the end.
pause here.
Yeah.
And then just to say thank you, this is very much about a practical implementation framework. And look, if there was an easier way to get this done, we would have done it already. I believe that only together we can actually make progress on this. Look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, so I will now present some slides on the proposal submission and evaluation process. So as mentioned, applicants forming the public side of the consortium will have to prepare the short proposal for stage 1 of this two-stage call. So for the short proposals, here are the elements that need to be prepared and submitted. The proposal template consists of a Part A, a Part B, and an annex. So the Part A is completed on the Funding and Tenders portal and includes all of the administrative data. The Part B is the narrative part of the proposal and includes sections on excellence, impact, and implementation. The Part B template includes instructions under each section. When preparing your proposals, please read the instructions carefully in the template. For the short proposal, an annex will also be requested in which applicants must list all participants and indicate which type they are, for example, SME, hospital, patient association, etc. This annex template will also be available on the submission environment. Okay, so as mentioned, the proposal template includes sections on excellence, impact, and implementation. The evaluation of the proposals by the independent panel of experts will also follow these very same criteria. You can have a look at the details of the evaluation criteria yourselves on these two slides. I won't go through them here today. However, it's important to highlight that in order to pass the evaluation, proposals need to have a score of a minimum of 3 from 5 for each criterion, and overall a minimum score of 10 from 15. And just to mention again, only the proposal with the best score at stage 1 will move on to stage 2. So therefore, it's not only enough to pass the evaluation, but your proposal needs to be the top ranked proposal to move to stage 2. Okay, some tips for applicants. So obviously, please read carefully all call relevant material, in particular the topic text. This is a key document against which your proposal will be evaluated. Try to form your consortium as early as possible. And when preparing your proposal, please already start thinking about the public-private partnership aspects in your proposal. It's important to demonstrate that the public-private partnership model has been considered in your proposal and how it is important for the success of your project. Please ensure that all information requested in the call text and proposal template is provided to allow the evaluation experts to assess your proposal against the evaluation criteria. Please consider early on and plan for the potential regulatory impact of your results. You will of course need to build or join a consortium, so please don't hesitate to network with your existing contacts, to network with other participants attending this webinar here today, to use the partner search tool on the Funding and Tenders portal, to get in touch with your IHI national contact points, and you can also, of course, network on social media. There are some links, hyperlinks on the slide here, which will be useful in your networking. And finally, just want to make you aware that there is also a platform to assist you in your networking called the B2Match platform. The platform allows you to meet potential project partners. There's a link here to the platform and some instructions on how to get started. So that's all from me. Now I think we will move on to the questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tony and John. So we just have arrived to the Q&A session, and while we wait for the questions from the audience, I would like to remind you to use the platform, which is actually a very useful tool, and on which you can find up to now 52 opportunities on the marketplace. So just go to the IHI Call Days platform and go to marketplace and select this topic, and there you can find different marketplaces opportunities. So I think we have a first question. So does central lab analysis include local hospital labs and regional analytical labs? Tony?
Yes, all of the above. So any lab that is currently used in the current framework of venipuncture and sort of clinic-centered blood collection would also be eligible for this pathway. We're trying to shift the mindset around the quantity of blood and where the blood is collected from the clinic to the patient. So all of those labs would be included.
Very good. Thank you so much. So we have a comment on the platform as well saying that they missed the recording, the meeting yesterday, and the recording is not available. So I will suggest to go to the website, to our website, ihi.europa.eu, and there on the event, you can see the recording. It's been already uploaded. So please just go there and check, and I'm sure you can find it. Has a deadline for submission been set yet? Or is it foreseen, John?
It's foreseen at the end of July this year. So that would be the call launched, and with a scheduled call closure deadline starts of November this year also.
Fantastic, thank you. So also I would like to remind you that you can find the call topic text on our website on future opportunities. And remember that that's a draft topic and well, it's subject to be changed. But for the moment, you can read it there until publication on the calls and tenders portal. All right, let's wait to see if we have other questions.
Yeah, John and Sergio, if there are questions after this call, they should go to you and then I can answer offline, correct?
That is correct, Tony. If some of the participants here today have some questions, they can actually address them to applicants@ihi.europa.eu. And just a reminder as well, if you miss the first part of this session, or you want to rewatch it again, the recording is going to be available as well on our website. So since we don't have any more questions, I think we can finish this session today. Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you so much, John.
Yes, thank you. And for the applicants, very much look forward to working with you. This is truly a change the framework opportunity that we all have to do together. So look forward to November and then getting this started next year.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tony.
Bye.